Hello and welcome to Indus News live from Islamabad. I'm Meher Sher and these are the headlines. Pakistan's army has killed the commander of a banned terrorist outfit in northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. In a statement, the military's media wing said Nuristan alias Hassan Baba was killed in an intelligence-based operation in South Waziristan. The military said he was a high-value target who had killed more than 50 security personnel since 2007. Islamabad says India has failed in its designs to add Pakistan to the blacklist of the Financial Action Task Force. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Islamabad successfully addressed 24 out of 27 points. Meanwhile, Minister for Industries Hamad Azhar said the task force noted Pakistan's significant improvement on the remaining 3 points as well. Speaking to the media, he said India's involvement in terror financing is known to all. Pakistan has signed a deal with Qatar to import liquefied natural gas for 10 years. Federal Minister for Energy Umar Ayub Khan and his Qatari counterpart Saad Sharida Al-Qabi inked the pact in Islamabad. Prime Minister Imran Khan attended the ceremony. Later speaking in Lahore, the Prime Minister said the deal will help the nation save $300 million annually. In Nigeria, police have confirmed the abduction of over 300 girls after gunmen raided a secondary school in northwestern state of Zamfara. This is the second such kidnapping in the region in little more than a week. Brazil has become the second country to surpass 250,000 COVID-19 deaths with 10 million cases. Meanwhile, Pakistan has registered more than 1,500 cases and 32 deaths in the last 24 hours. The country has recorded over 12,800 fatalities since the pandemic began. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.5 million lives and infected more than 112 million people. And in the Pakistan Super League, Multan Sultans are chasing a target of 158 runs against Lahore Qalandars at the National Stadium in Karachi. Mohammad Hafiz scored 61 runs for Qalandars. Peshawar Zalmi will play Quetta Gladiators in the other match scheduled for later in the day. Those were the headlines. More news in detail after a short break. Stay with us. Welcome back. And now for the news in more detail. Pakistan's military has killed a commander of the banned terrorist outfit Tehreek-e-Taliban Pakistan in an operation in the country's northern Khyber Pakhtunkhwa province. The military's media wing said Nuristan alias Hassan Baba was killed in an intelligence-based raid on his hideout in the Sharwangi Tiarza area of the South Waziristan district. The military said Hassan Baba was a high-value target involved in martyrdom of more than 50 security forces personnel since 2007. Nuristan was a known improvised explosive devices expert and master trainer of terrorist recruits. Islamabad says India has failed in its designs to add Pakistan to the blacklist of the Financial Action Task Force. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said Islamabad successfully addressed 24 out of 27 points. Qureshi said Pakistan's compliance efforts have been praised by many countries as well as the FATF. He reaffirmed that Islamabad will fulfill all its commitments by June this year. Meanwhile, Minister for Industries Hamad Azhar said the task force noted Pakistan's significant improvement on the remaining 3 points as well. Speaking to the media, he said Pakistan completed 90% of the tasks given by the FATF. despite COVID-19. Azhar added that India's involvement in terror financing is known to all. And moving on, the United Nations has welcomed an understanding between Pakistan and India to stop cross-border firing along the line of control. In a statement, a spokesperson for UN Secretary General said the decision is an opportunity for further dialogue. President of the UN General Assembly, Volkan Bozkır, also welcomed the agreement. Bozkır said the deal set an example for others and demonstrated the General Assembly's value. Earlier, the U.S. hailed the ceasefire as a positive step. It said peace and stability in South Asia are in the shared interest of both countries. White House Press Secretary Jen Psaki urged both sides to keep building upon the progress. And Pakistan has once again said that dialogue is the only possible way forward between Islamabad and New Delhi. In a statement, Foreign Minister Shah Mahmood Qureshi said India cannot deny the UN Security Council resolutions on Kashmir. Qureshi said the ceasefire understanding between Pakistan and India is a positive development. He slammed India for heightened tensions since 2008 at the line of control between the two nuclear-armed countries. Qureshi said scores of innocent civilians lost their lives due to Indian unprovoked firing and shelling at the line of control. And the U.S. has conducted airstrikes in eastern Syria against facilities belonging to Iran-backed militia. The Syrian Observatory for Human Rights said the strikes killed at least 17 pro-Iranian fighters. In a statement, Pentagon spokesperson John Kirby said the U.S. responded to recent attacks against American forces in Iraq. Kirby said the strikes destroyed multiple militia facilities at a border control point. He added that the action was aimed at conveying a message that U.S. President will act to protect American personnel overseas. The spokesperson said at the same time, the U.S. deliberately acted in a manner to de-escalate the overall situation in Syria and Iraq. Moving on, in Nigeria, hundreds of schoolgirls are feared to have been kidnapped in the northwestern state of Zamfara. Police say 317 students are unaccounted for after gunmen raided a secondary school. This is the second such kidnapping of students in the region in little more than a week. Last week, gunmen killed a student in an overnight attack at a boarding school and abducted 42 people, including 27 students in the north-central Nigeria. They are yet to be released. 8 Rohingya refugees have died and 81 others were rescued from a boat adrift in the Indian Ocean. The United Nations had earlier raised alarm over the missing boat, which set off from Bangladesh on February 11th. Authorities said another refugee was missing in the Andaman Sea. 2 ships were sent to help the refugees, 23 of whom were children. Officials say the boat's engine failed after 4 days at sea, and those on board ran out of food and water. Many were ill and suffering from extreme dehydration by the time they were rescued. And in Myanmar, police have fired guns to disperse protesters in the main city of Yangon. And in Mandalay, riot police opened fire at demonstrators gathered against the military coup. Police blocked off roads and launched a crackdown on protesters in Yangon. Tokyo says police have also detained a Japanese national in the city. Witnesses say journalist Yuki Kitazumi was baton charged by police and sustained head injuries. This is the first detention of a foreign reporter since the army takeover on February 1st. Moving on, the Saudi-led coalition in Yemen has made gains against the Houthi rebels in the northern Juf province. Yemen's defense ministry says recapturing a large area gives the army a vantage position over strategic locations. State media said the army is pushing towards new areas. It quoted a commander as saying that Houthis had suffered heavy setbacks and casualties. Meanwhile, the coalition said it has destroyed a drone launched by Houthis towards the Khamis Mashhad city of Saudi Arabia. In a statement, spokesperson Colonel Turki al-Maliki said the attack targeted civilians. And the U.S. says it will work for a strong and transparent bilateral partnership with Saudi Arabia. This comes after President Joe Biden held a telephonic conversation with Saudi King Salman. In a statement, the White House said Biden and Salman discussed regional security and other issues. It added that the leaders affirmed the historic nature of the relationship. Saudi state media and said King Salman congratulated Biden on his election victory. It said the two reviewed destabilizing Iranian activities and U.S. commitment to defend Saudi Arabia against such threats. Biden and Salman also discussed joint efforts to bolster Saudi defenses and cooperation in ending the war in Yemen. Now, Brazil has become the second country to surpass 250,000 COVID-19 deaths with 10 million cases. Elsewhere, the UN Security Council is set to vote on a British-drafted resolution. It demands a ceasefire to allow for vaccinations in all conflict-torn regions. Globally, the virus has claimed 2.5 million lives and infected more than 112 million people. More details in this report.
While the fear of another wave driven by new variants of COVID-19 looms, recent statistics bring a little relief. A report by the Institute of Health Metrics and Evaluation says coronavirus cases and deaths are declining faster than expected. However, the director of the U.S. National Institutes of Health said new and more contagious variants can fuel a new surge. Meanwhile, U.S. Food and Drug Administration has allowed the Pfizer vaccine to be transported and stored up to 2 weeks at normal freezer temperatures. President Joe Biden marked the successful administering of 50 million COVID-19 vaccine doses as he warned of a tough, long road ahead.
But the time is coming, maybe 60 to 90 days, when the supply is adequate, but not enough people can access the shots or don't want them. To address that challenge, we're going to launch a massive campaign to educate people about vaccines, that they are safe and effective.
In Europe, the situation continues to get grimmer. European Council President Charles Michel says vaccine rollout will continue to be difficult for at least the next few weeks. France is also imposing new restrictions around its borders with Germany as it tries to contain a fresh surge. Oxford University is investigating a digital intrusion after claims that its COVID-19 research laboratory has been hacked. Meanwhile, Queen Elizabeth has encouraged Britons to get vaccinated as concerns grow over the health of Prince Philip, hospitalized for an unspecific infection.
Well, once you've had the vaccine, you have a feeling of, you're protected, which is, I think, very important. And as far as I can make out, it was quite harmless. I think the other thing is that it is obviously difficult for people to, if they've never had a vaccine, they ought to think about other people rather than themselves.
Australia's Victoria state is set to start easing coronavirus restrictions to pre-Christmas settings. Meanwhile, Japan has decided to end a state of emergency a week earlier than scheduled in all but 4 prefectures.
Meanwhile, Pakistan has reported 64 deaths from COVID-19 in the past 24 hours. The health ministry says the death toll has climbed to 12,804. The ministry said 1,541 more people contracted the virus overnight. Out of over 577,000 infected in the country, more than 542,000 have recovered. The ministry said the number of active cases is over 22,000. It added 1,558 patients are in a critical condition. And Pakistan has signed a $1.1 billion deal with Qatar to import liquefied natural gas for 10 years. Prime Minister Imran Khan attended the ceremony held at the Prime Minister's house in Islamabad. Federal Minister for Energy Omar Ayub Khan and his Qatari counterpart Saad Sharida Al-Kabi inked the pact in Islamabad. Later, speaking at the groundbreaking ceremony of the Central Business District in Lahore, Imran Khan said the deal will help the nation save $3 million annually. The government says the funds will be utilized to import petroleum products during 2021. Moving on, Libya's Prime Minister-designate has proposed a technocrat government till the December 24th elections. In a press briefing, Abdulhamid Dbeibeh said the governing plan will include technocrats representing the whole Libyan spectrum. Dbeibeh said he has attempted a fair distribution of posts between the west, east and south of the country. The new interim government is intended to replace Libya's 2 rival administrations and oversee the run-up to national elections. Now, the U.S. has urged all parties in Armenia to exercise restraint as the Prime Minister warns of a military coup in the country. A State Department spokesperson says Washington is following the situation in Armenia very closely.
In a press briefing, Ned Price said armed forces should not intervene in domestic politics. Price said Armenian leaders must resolve their differences peacefully while respecting the rule of law. Earlier, Armenia's Prime Minister Nikol Pashinyan invited the opposition to hold talks to discuss the political crisis. Addressing his supporters at a rally, Pashinyan said that the people will not allow a military coup to take place. He said he has told the army to do its job and defend the country. The army's demand for the Prime Minister's resignation comes months after Armenia lost the war and territory to Azerbaijan.
More stories after a short break. Stay with us. We're back. A Belarusian court has sentenced an anti-government protester to 10 years in prison. Local media says the man was convicted of attempted murder for attacking security forces. The protester has denied any wrongdoing, while exiled opposition figure Svetlana Tikhanovskaya slammed the conviction. Meanwhile, the UN has warned about human rights violations in Belarus. It said nearly 250 people have been sentenced on politically motivated charges. Minsk has launched a violent crackdown on protests that has triggered new Western sanctions. And the U.S. has condemned Venezuela's decision to expel the head of the European Union delegation. In a statement, the State Department said Caracas removed an international champion of democracy and human rights. State Department spokesperson Ned Price said the action will further isolate President Nicolas Maduro's government. The European Union later declared Venezuela's envoy to Brussels persona non grata in a tit-for-tat move. In a statement, it said the expulsion of its ambassador was unwarranted and contrary to the spirit of partnership. The population of monarch butterflies that arrived in Mexico's forest to hibernate has fallen by 26%. The World Wildlife Fund says the butterflies occupied only 2.1 hectares in December 2020 compared with 2.8 hectares in 2019. In a statement, the WWF said climate change has had a considerable impact on the migration pattern. The climate crisis also caused a reduction in their milkweed breeding habitat in the United States. Millions of orange and black monarch butterflies migrate to Mexico on a 2,000-mile journey each year from Canada. Mexico's western state of Michoacan is home to the country's largest butterfly reserve. And former U.S. Olympics gymnastics coach John Geddert has committed suicide. Geddert had earlier been charged with human trafficking and sexual assault. Authorities say the former coach was also charged with criminal enterprise and lying to a police officer. Geddert had ties to disgraced U.S. team doctor Larry Nassar. In a statement, Michigan Attorney General Dana Nessel said the death was a tragic end to a tragic story for everyone involved. And a young girl flying to Los Angeles received an appetizing birthday surprise when a flight attendant offered her a birthday cake mid-air. The special upgrade to Sophia's in-flight meal was served with a round of applause from her fellow passengers. The flight attendants even went so far as to embellish the cake with sticks to replace candles, which are banned on flights. Sophia's parents thanked Spirit Airlines for the hospitality on social media, saying the gesture made it a wonderful day. In France, canaries, parakeets, and zebra finches will no longer chirp from small cages in the shadow of the Notre Dame Cathedral. This comes after authorities in Paris voted to close the 19th century bird market, deeming it inappropriate for this day and age. This report has more details.
Held on Sundays, the market on Ella de Side Isles on the River Seine has been a magnet for tourists and citizens for decades. But campaigning by animal rights groups and renovation plans led to a city council decision to close it. Authorities say the market poses a risk to endangered species, which are trafficked despite efforts to intercept them.
The city of Paris has decided to end the bird market for two major reasons. The first is that the bird market has become an epicenter of trafficking birds in the Paris region, and they continue despite a number of efforts to apprehend them by the Paris City Hall and the French Biodiversity Agency. And in particular, there's traffic of endangered bird species, which tends to persist.
The city says 13 people have a license to sell the birds at the market, but only 7 use it, and most of them also sell other things like pet supplies. Bird merchants admit that some of them were not respecting the rules, but say that it was up to the police to enforce them.
These are only birds that are born in cages. If we let them fly, they'll die. They don't even know how to fly. Yes, they'll fly, but how will they feed themselves? They will only last 3 days in the summer, eating flower buds and all that. And after a while, they will die. And in winter, it's cold, they won't find food, there will be nothing to eat. They're not meant for life outdoors.
The vendors fear bankruptcy and now are not sure what to do with the stock that is left. The City Hall has vowed to help vendors to find alternative livelihoods to selling birds.
In Denmark, dark winter skies have brightened up as the annual Lights Festival is underway in the Danish capital, Copenhagen. More details in this report.
The extremely expressive yet quiet Copenhagen Light Festival has provided citizens with much-needed light during the cold winter season and stressful times due to the pandemic. Visitors are enjoying the illuminated buildings and artwork at the 23-day festival in the Danish capital, while also adhering to the coronavirus safety precautions.
I think it's really just what people need right now, sort of a grown-up treasure hunt, moving from one piece of art to another, each of them inviting for a moment of reflection, having a thought about, what life is about these days. And I think that has been taken down very well by our visitors.
The light installations are mostly located in and around Copenhagen city center. Amid COVID-19, guided tours, talks, and pop-up events have been cancelled this year. However, they have been replaced with an interactive map to help the visitors in finding their routes and information about the light installations in the city.
We have no enclosures or things that forces people to be together. They can watch it from a distance, or they can go on the other side of the canal. So there's a big area and many routes that they can choose from. Also, we have the app that guides people so that they can find their own way and their own tempo. So we have no problem with people getting too close.
The festival is taking place for the 4th year now, and around 30 light installations have been placed around Copenhagen.
And Italian fashion house Prada reworked wardrobe classics for its fall line at the Milan Fashion Week. Designers Miuccia Prada and Raf Simons said they were inspired by the idea of change and transformation.
Old-fashioned glamour met psychedelical print as Prada shined in Milan. Muppet faux fur sprouted in place of wallpaper. Navy and gray pinstrip suits were reimagined as jackets with short scrunched sleeves. Outerwear included wraps in fake fur, nylon, and sequences, and large loose bomber jackets. These clothes are a collaboration between long-standing designer Miuccia Prada and Raf Simons, who joined last year. In a statement, Prada said they played with the idea of the classic, subvert it, and transmute it. Simons added that there were many contrasts in this collection: retro and futuristic, embellished and minimal, sports and elegance. Milan Fashion Week, which runs until the 1st of March, is a virtual event this season due to the COVID-19 restrictions.
And now for the latest in business. Stocks in Asia Pacific have nosedived following an overnight drop on Wall Street as a rapid rise in bond yields rattled investor sentiment. The Kospi in South Korea and Japan's Nikkei 225 have tumbled close to 3.5%. Hong Kong's Hang Seng Index has dipped over 3% as well. Mainland Chinese bourses and the ASX 200 in Australia have also shed over 2%. And now it's time to take a look at the latest weather updates from around the world. For the latest updates, you can follow us on social media at indus.news.